Welcome everybody to the inaugural episode of Squared Away, our brand new weekly show where we run down the results of the most recent Square 1 matches and get some reactions and takes from the community. Alongside me will be my regular co-host Vaeris, and joining us each week are going to be some of the finest minds from inside the Square 1 universe. Expect coaches, analysts, maybe even some team owners if we can wrangle them. So with that, Vaeris, why don't you introduce our first guest today?
So we're joined by everyone's favourite Finnish man. He is Absolved's assistant coach. He's also a colourcaster in SQ1. You may have heard of him. He's Omena.
Hello.
Thrilled to have you here, Omena, for our first episode. And as such, I'm going to give a quick breakdown of the show here. So, firstly, we're going to start off with a brief recap of the week's results featuring this excellent graphic design from our staff team, and then we'll continue on to another segment which I like to call Winners and Losers, where each member of the panel we've put together here will name one winner and loser from that week. Now, these can be anything within reason: players, the audience, a champion pick, team social media managers, you name it, as long as it's related to that week's games. So, without further ado, let's get stuck right into it with our beautiful graphic, courtesy of our managing director Kai. Got to give him a shout out there. So Vaeris, since you have host privilege, I'm going to start with you. What jumps out at you from this table of information here?
So instantly what stands out is Black Lion for me. After seeing how they played last split, they played only through evil yokai. They always would play assassin mid, they'd always go for Aurelia, Akali, Kiana. They'd avoid playing mages as much as they could. They'd play Yasuo Gragas till it got boring, till people started to know how they play.
Yeah.
And they look a lot more stronger, they look more complete. They look like they can play around the map now. They don't have to just play through mid. And that just speaks to the team's strengths of how much stronger they actually look. And they definitely look like a team which is going to be highly contested in this split.
Absolutely, and a huge part of that strength does come from their returning jungler Cyrox. He was there last split and he looks very, very comfortable coming into this new one with his team around him. Omena, what have you seen so far of this player and how do you think he's going to be shaping up?
I mean, he had two really good performances. I think he got the MVP vote twice this week. So I'm expecting a lot from this guy. He looks like a very promising player.
Absolutely, being the only person on our MVP table there to have secured 2 votes for themselves. And as a jungler, you know, they are very impactful players in general, but Cyrox does seem to have moved into this full kind of carry position, you know, where as opposed to before where he's playing a lot of early game, now he's being the main primary carry for his team. And that's not to say anything less about the rest of Black Lion. Their other lanes have looked strong, the players have looked well coordinated. It's just looking like a really, really good start for this team. So we've covered Black Lion. We do have another team sitting up there at 2-0. Omena, tell me a little bit about Sparks' first week.
Yeah, so we got Sparks. They were playing pretty well their games. They had some ups and downs in their games. I think both of the games went pretty long, so they had some trouble closing out the games, but pretty convincing 2-0, since they did beat the last split, champion Split Raiders.
Absolutely, it was a heck of a game that they had to go through with that one. A very interesting team comp that Sparks had there with multiple flex lanes, you know, AD carries, and I think it was mid lane as well with the AP Gragas top lane. It was a show, to be sure. Split Raiders, they did fall to Sparks. They're reigning champions in our league, but they are still at 1-1 and they do still have a lot to offer despite the fact that their top lane has been replaced. So Vaeris, now that we've seen their top lane, we saw a lot of their top lane last split. You know, how do you think these new players are going to match up to fill that hole?
It's going to be hard to fill Nazgul's shoes just in general. Like, Nazgul was a cut above every top laner in the league. I'm not even afraid of saying that because it was so true how much he stood out compared to everyone else. And filling them shoes is going to be near impossible, but trying to push yourself close to that level, it's always a good goal to aim for. It's something where you're going to always be like, I can hit this, I've just got to keep going and keep going. And the thing with Split Raiders is, last split, they didn't even start off good either.
Yeah.
They started off pretty average. They looked like a pretty shaky team at the start. And then they came back, they started smacking everyone left, right, center, and they started climbing and climbing and climbing. And I think if they can regain that sort of form, that's exactly what they could do again. They have the players to do it, and I do think their top laner is capable. He is a good top laner.
Yeah, for sure. I believe on the interview we heard that he was a smidge hungover for that first game. Might have contributed to the rough laning phase that Lawless had, but I assume he'll be showing up sober and correct to the rest of the games and be able to show us a little bit more. And, you know, while he is recovering from last night's hangover, their mid laner, Flamey, previously Shambles, did step up in a big way on that Vlad, that classic pick, and was basically able to solo carry that game. So, Omena, as an ex-mid laner yourself, you know, as one of the greats in Square One's history of mid lane talent, how do you think Flamey is going to stack up in terms of the rest of the mid laners? Because, you know, Nox isn't here anymore, Evil Yokai still is, we do have some more new players like Sparks' Nafkala. How do you think Flamey fits into that pack of mid laners?
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the other mid laners yet, but what I saw on the first week, I think he's at least in the top 3 mid laners right now. He's a really stable mid laner. Like last split, he was just carrying games left and right on like pretty much like any game they would have won. Like he was carrying those games. So he's definitely someone to watch out for.
But if we ban Vlad though, what then? What does the guy do then? We saw him play some other things, you know, occasionally last split. We did see him pull out one Z game. I think that went pretty terribly into Lucker. He actually lost against the CJ and Vaeris mid lane, which was something to behold. But, you know, if Vlad goes away, do you think there's enough, just, you know, in general, strong mid picks that he can slot into that late game carry position? We did see a Corki game at least once.
Yeah, I mean, judging by his solo queue, he has numbers on a lot of other champions as well. Like, he doesn't look like a Vlad one trick. Of course, that's what he is most known for in these games. But when you play at this level, even though, like, it is not the highest level right now that these players are playing on, like, even the one tricks, quote-unquote one tricks, they have champions they can fall onto.
Absolutely. And, I mean, I think that having Vlad just be this ever-present champion in Square One, it never goes away. I want to get both of your opinions on this. How long do you think it's going to be? Let's give an over-under of 6 months until Vlad gets touched by the balance team.
It's not going to get touched, unfortunately.
I agree, it's not going to get touched either.
Do you think it should be, or do you think it's actually fine?
I think it's fine, honestly. Like, it's very controversial to say it, because obviously people have 50-50 opinions on this.
Yeah.
And it's always going to be that way regardless. And the reason I think it's fine, it only carries games because it gets to that stage where it can carry games. It gets enabled to that stage where it's got the items to be like, alright, now we can fight. And then by then it's too late for the enemy team. It just means that you've got outscaled.
Yeah, but in the other hand, like, that champion should not have that strong of a laning phase. The fact that you can just use, like, the mid, like, camps near mid lane as, like, healing pool whenever you cannot even access the wave, and it's just ridiculous. Like, if a champion like Kayle is strong in the meta, like, I'm fine with that, you can actually shut down her. But like Vladimir, it's just hard to gank, it's hard to poke down, it's hard to out-trade when you get level 6. I think the champion has a bit too much going on for him right now.
I like that the division here is across the lines of who's a mid lane main and who isn't a mid lane main. Mid lane main,
but
Vlad, disgusting,
don't get me wrong, he's not gonna get nerfed. He's not gonna get nerfed.
Vlad is in top lane as well.
Yeah, unfortunately,
I'm not missing him too.
At least he's not in the bot lane anymore. That was a dark time. At least we've moved on from that. So, to move us forward from the Vlad salt train that I just love to start at all opportunities, let's look for some more salt, and let's go to the bottom of the league table to find some of this. We have 2 O2 teams so far. We've got Lions, Creed, and Core Dynamic. Now, Lions, Creed, they ended up just outside of playoffs, I believe, or maybe snick into the quarterfinals last season. Core Dynamic, they were definitely not quite able to make it. They had a resurgence at the end of the season. They've now come in, unfortunately, with another 0-2 start, but I have to say they definitely didn't look as bad as they did at the start of last season. So Vaeris, what do you think has changed for them now?
I think they have started to understand what their game plan is a bit more. I think they've started to understand how they can win a game against teams that are better in certain roles. Because there is teams that have just better players, and sometimes that is the difference between why you lose, why you win. But they've started to understand, like, right, we can't be their top, so let's play weak side top and play through bot. And their bot last season was actually quite consistent, and they did win games through playing through it. and they've started to understand their game plan a bit more and starting to push towards that side of it. It looks like they've taken a lot more time to think about what they're doing.
Absolutely, they hopefully they can turn it around in the next few weeks, as they do have plenty more chances to come back. And they did have, we've got some tough teams here, and you're not really going to find an easy matchup at any point. And a lot of teams, they did go 1-1 so far. We have 4 1-1 teams: Glorious Gaming, Absolved, Split Raiders, and Resolve. So my question to you, Omena, is we have a lot of teams in this middle of the pack. Do any of these teams stand out to you as one which is most likely to shift themselves up into that upper echelon?
Yeah, definitely. I have to take my boys Split Raiders back to the top.
Yeah.
Like the roster they have, even though they changed 2 players, I believe, from the roster, yeah. Like the original squad is still strong. And the new players, like on any meter, aren't bad. Like that roster is still basically the same Split Raiders we had last split. And they managed to win the whole league. So I do believe that they're gonna be going back to the top.
That they did, and they've got that same core, so yeah, I imagine they're likely to take it. One of the biggest question mark, I think, coming in is naturally going to be our new team, Resolved, which came out swinging pretty hard this week. So Vaeris, on paper, Resolved looked like the weakest team in our league, but they had some absolutely dominating performances from some of their players, including their jungler Rosara, who took Varte to town in the jungle in their second game. So do you think that was a one-off? Do you think that Rosara is going to keep dominating in the jungle? Is he going to get up to Cyrox's level? Is one of these premium junglers in the league?
I definitely think he's one of the strongest junglers, if not the strongest jungler. It's quite controversial to say it early, but you see the way he controls jungle.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to do. You see junglers either like ganking, they like farming, but he likes to control where the jungle is going. He likes to determine where they have to go. They're saying, you can't have your top jungle, go to your bottom jungle, then I'm going to kill your top, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's what he does. He forces you to play the other side of the map. So he's a different level of jungler, and I think he's definitely one of the strongest. And if Resolve find a way to play around him a bit more and enable him playing like early game champions in the mid, or early game champions in the top, or even bot lane, whatever, and push him a bit further, I feel like they could literally just win through that one win condition.
Well, I think we had a little check up on him after he was, partway through that Lee Sin versus Sylas matchup, and we saw that I believe he has served time on Misfits, the EUM team, I believe, their French league team, but that's still, huge accolades for a player, and having players of this caliber coming into Square One is obviously a great boon for us, and it's lovely to see plays like that. It was really, really impressive. So I think that's a decent recap here. We've got an idea of who's at the top, who's at the bottom, who's looking to push up. And now I think we're going to move on to our next segment. We're going to go to winners and losers. Now, viewers, if you look really closely, okay, you're going to see a very minor change in the graphical quality coming up here. So if you want to full screen it, really get your glasses out and see where the change happens, because these two graphics are almost identical in quality. But here it is. Here's the G-Sheets table that we've got for winners and losers. It is in fact literally just colored boxes on a Google Sheet, but it does serve the job for us here. So we're going to get into these winners and losers. As I said before, these can be anything that makes sense, and to make it easier, I'm going to start us off. My winner for this week 1 has to be Cyrox. I think that this player really just stepped up, as I said before, and now he has a team that is ready to get behind him and be their primary carry, and he does not squander that support. They came in with the Galio to support the Kindred, etc., and he was still going in, making aggressive plays, going in when he needs to be, out when he needs to be. I just really thought that he impressed me so much, being given this higher responsibility in the team.
Yep, could not agree more.
Yeah, definitely. Cyrox definitely looks like a player to definitely keep watching.
Sure, so that's an easy clocked in there. Let's go to another winner. Vaeris, let's get yours for the week.
So mine's literally along the same lines. Mine would be actually Black Lions as a whole.
Well, there you go.
Because coming out how weak they were at the start of last split, they started off really shaky. They looked like they had just so many holes in their ship, and because of that, it was like they just sunk in the competition. And now they look like they're riding the waves. They're actually coming out stronger. Cyrox, like you mentioned, actually showing such a good performance in both games, coming up with MVP votes. Not only that, Either Yokai is playing different things now.
Yeah.
He's playing Galio to support Cyrox. Like, this is a guy who refused to play mages and played assassins. The team as a whole just seem like they're evolving and starting to understand more where they want to go with this.
Absolutely. So specifically about Evil Yokai there, you mentioned being able to swap, that role from the Yasuo every game, Kion every game to the Galio. Omena, you mentioned that you worked as an assistant coach for Absolved. Like, when you're working with players in these leagues, because you've been on several teams yourself as well, you've been a player too, how easy is it to get a player to kind of change their identity of how they want to play the game? Does it vary by person, or, how long does it take to actually expand a champion pool for someone who literally was playing assassin every game,
I'd say 4 out of 5 times they don't change. At
Really?
this level, they refuse to change.
Dang.
You give them champions, hey, can we play this? No, I want to play this style. And the 1 out of 5 time they do change, it's not a guarantee that it will work out. So I'm definitely positively surprised that this is working out well for Black Lion.
Yeah, even more praise for Evil Yokai then. Let's go straight on to your winner then of the week, Omena.
Yeah, I mean, I have Sparks as a whole winner this week. I just had to pick them. Both of their wins weren't the most convincing wins, but they did manage to close the games out against Resolve and the last split champions, Split Raiders. I think that deserves some praise for them. And
sure.
solo queue wise, the players look really insane, but on the first games, no one looked bad on their team. So I'll give them my win of the week.
Absolutely. I think... Oh, go ahead.
I'd like to add on to that. It's like what you just said. They won against Resolve and Split Raiders. These aren't bad teams. These are teams which are going to be contesting. These have very, very strong players. And to say that you came out with a win against both these teams, it's pretty big.
Yeah,
sure.
Definitely.
I mean,
but even though the wins weren't that convincing, both of the games they had to get a soul, but at least it shows that they can play around dragons, that they can actually close out the games even though they aren't stomps.
Sure, it's a really good sign at this early stage, having a team like this able to organize themselves in that fashion. So the fact that we have 2 teams as winners right now, and a player from one of those winning teams as well, which, if we just went straight into the next game, and the first game of next week was Black Lion versus Sparks Esports, who do you guys think would actually win there, just now, off this first week of information?
Honestly, I think Sparks. Sparks' ability to adapt has been better than any other team, even last split. I would say this. They were always better at adapting to new metas. They're always better at adapting to new picks. They would like to bring out new picks and show their different strategies. They're not scared of hiding it for playoffs or anything else. They'll bring it out whenever they need to bring it out. And just how fast they were willing to adapt shows a lot of growth in the team.
I'm gonna go the other way around. I think Black Lion looked more stable on the first 2 games. Even though the opponents for Sparks weren't the easiest, but they still took a long time to end those games. And kill-wise, they were really even, all the way to the end. So Black Lion had a more clean first week, so if they went against each other, I think they could pull it through.
I like that Vaeris' winner was Black Lion, and he's going for Sparks, and Omena's winner was Sparks, and he's going for Black Lion. So basically what we've learned is it's a close call, is what we can take away from this, is that these 2 teams are neck and neck, really, in terms of their strength after this 1 week. It is only 1 week. We'll have to see how that develops as the further games come through. So let's go down to our losers section here, and my loser for this week is going to be the team draft coaches. And the reason I say that is because, jumping off from Sparks, we did see an AP Gragas top lane building Medjai's when he was 2-2 and 4, proceeding to get no stacks, and then I don't know if he even sold it. I think he just kept it as a no stack item, until they won the game. So having the league be basically 50-50 between this rigid meta adhesion with Ezreal 100% presence or near enough to it, Yuumi almost 100% presence, Aphelios coming out over and over, you know, Syndra being his priority pick, Vaeris priority pick. It's very much what we see on the pro level. Half of it is that, and half of it is AP top Gragas with Medjais. So if I'm a draft coach and I'm looking at these teams, I'm just confused as to where to target. Do I want to take away the meta picks or secure them for myself? Or do I want to get us working on nifty counter picks that can actually just break an early game open and maybe get you that advantage to snowball to a win? I think it's a really tough time for them.
Yeah, I can agree on that one. A lot of the teams, like Absolved's game against, I cannot remember which one of the games, but they had a Z mid for some reason, and overall the draft was just like unwinnable. Well, I mean, I guess we can see which one of the games it was then. It was against Glorious Gaming.
Yeah.
So I think the worst enemy for some of these teams are themselves.
I think it took us most of the season to get an Inting Z mid in the league last time, so we're getting it out of the way nice and early. We've had our Inting Z, and now hopefully we can get back to more safe territory, perhaps. So
yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully. So let's go on to our second loser here. What have you got for us, Vaeris?
I have the stale bot lane meta as the loser. I'm hitting hard at it because, right, the bot lane meta is a case of 3 AD carries right now, which is Vaeris, Ezreal, Aphelios. And one of the reasons is Death Stance, which is getting nerfed for ranged champions. So is that going to be still as dominant? Are they still going to be the picks? How are teams going to adapt to this draft with like these champions falling down in priority? They're still going to be good because Death Dance is still going to be tanky if they build it. But our team's going to adapt. Our team's going to build differently or aim to draft differently in bot lane. And that's why I'm saying the stale bot lane meta, because things are going to get shaken up and Yuumi's actually going to get hit pretty hard next patch.
Yeah, I think Yuumi nerf was terrifying. The 15% max mana on every cast of the E, I think. That is, I've never seen anything like that before. I think that's like a new, you know, bit of text on champions in general, that Yuumi has broken the game to such an extent that they've got to make up new ways to nerf her.
Yeah, I'm just happy to see the cat gone. Like, just get her out of my games.
Absolutely, get her out. I believe the Death Dance nerf was from 20% of the delayed damage that it delays as bleed down to 10%. 10%, which seems on the surface to me a lowly play-by-play, fairly insignificant. I don't know what you guys think. Is this actually enough to make it not, you know, Ezreal's third item in every game?
I'll go first. Now pass on to you, man. I kind of think it's not going to change much because one of the reasons building it is just literally 3 resistances on an item which gives you AD, CDR, basically lifesteal.
Who made this? Who made it?
And yeah, who made it?
That's a certainly T item if ever I saw one, you know?
And it just gives AD carries 3 tanky stats for nothing because they don't get punished by building it. It's not a low amount of stats you're getting. It's not a low amount of lifesteal you're getting from it, technically. So I still see it being built, and I don't think that nerf is going to hit it in the right direction. And the main reason it wasn't built before on AD carries is because it didn't give resistances before. And the build path is so easy to do right now.
Rough one, for sure. I imagine that we will keep seeing it for a little bit. Hopefully. Well, who knows? Maybe it will work out. You know, 200 years and all that. I'm sure they've got some sort of plan going into this one. Let's go into our last loser of the week. Omena, what do you have?
My loser of the week, it's a rough one. It's Sylas Jungle.
Oh no.
I had to. I just don't want to see this champion in the jungle anymore. But I have another point on this one. Non-meta junglers and like overall. I think the meta junglers at the moment are just on another level compared to everything else. Like, of course, you can call that like, oh, Kindred isn't meta or something like that, but she kinda is meta at the moment. It's just she requires positions to be picked. But when we see these Sylas jungles or Kha'Zix jungles, even though the Kha'Zix won the game, it was not convincing. Like, just pick the Lee Sins, Rek'Sais, Gragases. Just pick those champions, please. They're not getting banned. They're not getting banned in any of these games. Just pick them.
We can't put it jungle. Gragas is too busy in the top lane, I'm afraid. He's locked in up there. Too busy. Sorry.
I totally agree though. Like, I think the current meta junglers are so strong right now. You have a big option of junglers you can pick between now. And even Echo is still up there with one of the best junglers. He's a very consistent jungler or fits in with the meta junglers. I just think you have so much better options right now. So yeah, I agree.
I think the only person that I would give a free pass to play non-meta is Varte if he's got Nunu or Ivern. I think somehow, I mean, it's kind of specifically this Sylas jungle came out of a performance that he had against Rosaro's Lee Sin, but I think that from what we've seen of his Nunu and Ivern, and I think Ivern at least is in a pretty decent spot. Nunu is definitely not useless as well by any point, and being these kind of unique champions that can change the way the game is played, change the pace of the game, obviously it gets less effective the better the players are because they're not going to get thrown by a simple pick, but he's just so proficient on them that I think, you know, he could just go back to the Sejuanis, the Gragases, his usual playbook, but I think that the Nunu and Ivern I would still like to see at any point.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I think Ivan is a great pick right now. It's just most of the junglers don't have the 500 games to put on the champion to be actually good on it. Like, the champion is incredibly hard to play. Like, not mechanically, but like just knowing what to do. Because you basically play support, and you still have like ability, like, don't get me wrong, like, I don't know the champion well enough to know like what he exactly does, but like what I've seen is that like he can actually just counter jungle the opponent if he knows what he's doing, just smiting away the buffs like whole game. Like, it's so annoying to play against when you have a good Ivan against you.
And that sort of falls in with a Nunu as well. Like, Nunu, when you get good at that champion, you're able to live in the enemy jungle without punishment. You're able to go for any objective without punishment, again, because you have so much extra damage towards monsters with your Q, doing so much damage on top of that, and you just become that tanky. Like, your dive potential with Nunu is so absurd, because by the time the enemy wants to react, there's already a massive snowball heading into lane at their tower, and even then, if you flash, it's still probably going to hit you.
It is a very tough one to escape, absolutely. So hopefully, let's see if Varte can get his feet under him again next week. Maybe see some of those picks, maybe not. But I imagine that he'll be able to bounce back nonetheless. And I think that is about all of the time we have today. We're coming up to that tight 30 minutes. So thank you very much, Vaeris and Omena, for joining me today for this first episode. We will be bringing this back weekly with plenty more guests to follow. So everybody, please tune back in for that later on. And of course, don't forget to tune in on the weekend, 2 p.m. CEST on Saturday and Sunday for more games for the Square One Championship. Thank you all for everyone for tuning in. We will hope to see you there. That's all for us.